Greetings, everyone. This is IP with another video. This time, I'm going to be speaking about the film Justice League. Um, I love the film. It's my number one superhero film. A lot of people are having these nitpick issues, if you want to call them, particularly the Snyder cultists, if you want to say. Listen, I like Snyder as a director. I enjoyed all of his films except for The Walking Dead, I believe. I'm not a horror dude. Um, I enjoyed 300 immensely. Even though he didn't do the second one, he produced it. I love that. I love Watchmen. But my favorite is Sucker Punch. That's his best film to me. But out of the superhero genre, Man of Steel, classic. BVS, classic. But then you have Justice League. Here's the argument. We all know Snyder was directing Justice League, but once they were done shooting and they were doing the final edits, he left the project because his daughter committed suicide, sad death, and it took a toll on him, and he couldn't really focus anymore. So Josh Whedon, a good friend of his who was next to him while he was doing the film, basically completed the project, and the final cut came out the way it came out, and that was the theatrical release. There was rumors that Warner Brothers wanted them to cut the film to only 2 hours, which was kind of like unheard of when you think of DC films. They're usually 2 hours plus. BVS came out to be close to 3 hours, but the actual uncut release was 3 hours max. And we had gotten used to that. Like, it was basically always a 2 hour plus film. But a film like Justice League doesn't have to be 2 hours plus. The reason being is because BVS was dealing with character clashes for the first time in the DCEU. There was another character introduced in another character's story arc, which was Batman. So they needed time to, and then it was a reboot Batman after the Christian Bale portrayal, and we hadn't had a new Batman except Christian Bale for like 4 years. So to have a new one, they needed to break down how he fit into this story arc, and that took time. And they were introducing Wonder Woman, and they were introducing other members of the Justice League. So they did all of this, and they needed time to basically go into detail with that. But then afterwards, you had the metahumans, and they touched upon that in Suicide Squad, and then they went back and spoke about Wonder Woman origins. So with Justice League, they got right into it. Right in the beginning, you see Batman facing a parademon, which he discovered after already knowing that there was going to be an attempt of an invasion of Earth by some being. He didn't know who, but he had visions. You remember in BVS where Flash was telling him, you have to find us, and he made it his mission to find metahumans. He even spoke about it with Wonder Woman. So if you were invested in the story of these characters prior to Justice League, this was just a mission in a Justice League chapter. It was reminiscent of a Justice League episode. So in Justice League, you're not going to get the same feeling as you get as in a Batman solo film or a Wonder Woman solo film. You should already know this. So the fans kind of like are short-sighted, if you ask me. Now, we know Snyder has a certain style in making his films, but I think you comparing the styles that he had with his previous films But even those were different. If you look at Man of Steel and BVS, it's almost as if they're from two different directors because they're nothing alike. The only thing you can find similar is the intro, the scene, the first scene, the opening scene where Metropolis was being destroyed. Other than that, it was a crime thriller slash. Um, it was basically a crime thriller, whereas MOS was a sci-fi film completely. So they play with genres in the superhero genre when it comes to DCEU. And Justice League was a fantasy film, completely fantasy slash sci-fi. So when people say Justice League is they want the Snyder cut, what they basically saying they want a BVS part 2, and that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get a Justice League film. Then people have problems with the score. The score is Danny Elfman's score, right? But if you look at the films after BVS, they weren't using those same type of tones or the same type of rhythms that they had in BVS because they were dealing with different themes. The music had to match the theme. Okay, so when you look at Suicide Squad, it sounded kind of like Danny Elfman because it was reminiscent of like a Batman Returns or something like that. Then you look at Wonder Woman, they have these little hints of Hans Zimmer, but they strayed away from that and they started playing these more classic type melodies, and it was really going in the direction that Justice League went. So instead of just looking at BBS and going with Hans Zimmer, look at the films afterwards, because each of these movies are like different chapters in the Justice League book or something. So Man of Steel is like chapter 1, BVS is like chapter 2. You can't look at it as like a Marvel Cinematic Universe where, oh, we got Batman Part 1 or Batman Part 2 and then we get a Justice. It's not like that. Okay, Justice League is its own entity, and you're not going to get the same feeling of any of their iconic heroes in their solo films. You're just not, because the worlds collide, and you need neutral cinematography, neutral music, and neutral tones and dial and basically style clashes to encompass all of the characters' lore in one film. Which is to my next point. This is why I feel like it's the best film, because it brought the best of each world and had it in one specific focus, which is hard to do. If you paid attention to the development of these characters prior to Justice League, it's the ultimate reward, because you see the resurrection of Superman. You see each character in his own existence challenged in their own way. Wonder Woman is completing her arc from being in hiding or being separate from the human race based upon Steve Trevor's death. You see Aquaman being a loose cannon and walking away from his throne or his position in Atlantis. Cyborg is going through inner turmoil because of his disastrous, accident that caused him to bond with Machine based on alien tech. And you have Batman, who had one of the best arcs from being a very, very insane Batman to being the more continuity Batman. And he did this in Justice League. So as a fan of the DCU, it's the moment that counts, not just the stylized or the specific story or the way of telling the story individually for each movie, because they're all connected to the same story, but they're just told um, in different styles. For example, BVS, like I said, was a crime thriller, but Justice League was a fantasy slash sci-fi film, and that was, that was amazing to me. I felt like I got to explore what I loved already. Like I got to get more details in Steppenwolf's background. I got to see, you know, some aspects of the Atlanteans. I got to go and, see, Cyborg and his, um, him actually having doubts about his existence, and question his father's integrity based upon binding him. So it had more to offer to me than BBS did, even though BBS was more extensive, but it was a means to an end that we already saw coming, which is the clash of the Titans between Batman and Superman, and then of course Doomsday. But Justice League had, the mother boxes showing the history between humans, Atlanteans, and the Amazon. It was just accumulative for those who've already invested. So, you can pick your poison, but I go with Justice League. Justice League is my number one, and I can't really go into detail. The acting was better. No, it was none of that. It was just basically the moment. It is what BVS prepared me for. That's basically what that was. I went through BVS. I went through the anguish of seeing Superman die, and we went through all of that. And Justice League basically rewarded us with his resurrection and seeing a team together. And you can't beat that moment with, just drama. You know what I mean? So, some may prefer to say, BVS was better as a movie, but it's still a superhero film at the end of the day. So, within the DCU context, now we know that they make movies with superheroes in them. It's almost like choosing a Harry Potter film, which a better comparison would be Lord of the Rings versus Godfather. Both are deemed classics, but they're classics within their genres, and that's what Justice League and BVS represent. I'm more of a fantasy slash sci-fi dude than I am a crime thriller. So, on that note, Justice League is my top film, and that's basically it. IP signing out. Thanks.